to 3 of our Aussie to Africa trophy build.
In this episode, we're tackling our biggest challenge yet, and that is repairing all of the rust in the driver's and passenger side footwell and the inner and outer sills.
I'm going to be making some new door cards from scratch. Our old ones are water damaged and currently looking pretty fugly.
So obviously we've got a lot to do. Let's get into it. There's a few different bits and pieces in here that we've got to replace. We've got to do the outer sills, the inner sills, the floor pan, and just kind of deciding which one to take off first. Because you could do it in one order or another. And I've hummed and hard about it and decided that, yeah, fuck it, I'm just going to start cutting. She'll be right. Isn't that delicious?
Oh my
Look
God.
at that delicious, nutritious rust prevention from some old idiot that thought that grease and fish oil could repair rusted steel. Absolutely sensational. So we're going to make a much better job of that. A much better job of that.
These are our new panels. We're ready to go in. Just waiting for the rusty ones to come out.
More of that.
Yeah.
Tasty. The results of the just start cutting approach are I've now got the sill cut away, and this is the new one, which is going to fit up quite nicely. I've got a lot of bits missing in order to get these floor pans out, and what I'm doing now is cutting all the rusty section away, cutting it back as much as possible, just back to the clean stuff. The floor pan that we have doesn't have these moulded bulges. Didn't quite shop around for long enough. The Mr. Land Cruiser parts have this bulge. The ones that we got from a local distributor don't. So I'm going to cut out the flat stuff that we've got, and we're going to have to fabricate a few parts just to make up some of these curves and corners. Not a big deal. It's going to be semi-time consuming to achieve that, but for the bulk of it, it'll be chopped and replaced, and I'll get to it. There's a fair bit going on in these floor pans. We've got the floor pan, which is attached to the body mount. I'll show that from underneath. And then you've got the kick panel attached to the body mount. So I'm going to just cut the floor pan out from this side, so this side of the seam. That way the kick panel, which becomes part of the firewall, is still attached to the body mount, so that'll still hold this whole kind of corner of the car up. So I'll do this first, tidy up. Obviously this is a part of the body mount that's corroded away. I'll fix that up by taking part of this away, but it'll still be attached on the back side. So replace this, fix that, get half of this cut away, and finish up whatever needs doing in this corner. And then once I'm finished here, it'll be replacing the whole rest of the kick panel. So I got carried away and welded the sill in without recording anything. That's what happens at the end of a couple long weeks. But that's in now, so it's spot welded solidly at either end, and I've tack welded it in where the original sill comes down. Now that was pretty tricky to line up. There was a bit of buggering around to try and get that right. So now I've gone through and cut the whole floor panel out completely, and had to flatten a lot of sections that were originally creases. So we've got the new floor panel cut out, ready to go. So as I was saying about flattening these sections off, you can see where these are a raised crease, and these did not match up with the originals. I've had to manipulate this one around a bit. So this here has been flattened off. That was a crease that continued into the original pan, and so was this corner as well. So these little rust panels I've made up because those bits were just beyond use. So 1, 2, 3 of those, and 4. There you go, I've forgotten how much I've done. So that's it, ready to weld in. I'm going to start tacking that around. It's going to take a bit of lifting and shifting. Like this section needs to bow out. It's far from perfect, but bloody good enough. This has been a fair challenge and very time consuming, so it's at a point now we can just weld it in and move on.
I've decided I'm going to make a list on the blackboard of everything that we need to do. I'm going to split it into two sides. I'm probably going to do like the restoration and the car stuff on here, and then the fit out on that side. So this is either going to be really helpful and encouraging, or it's going to be really demoralizing because of how much is going to be on this board, but I'm going to do it anyway, so yeah.
So now that I'm finished with that corner, still got some welding out to do for the rest of the floor pan, but finally got that finished enough to start cutting out the toe board. So the old toe board is now cut out. That goes right the way underneath where the sill structure came down to. So I can access that because I've already cut the sill away when we first started this part of the job. So now that that's all cut away, had to take a section of the side panel, the kick panel out to access this lip here. So this is a new one to go in. I've trimmed it up to fit the existing shape. It was a much different shape, but that's just the way they come, these rust repair panels, because you always get a bit excess. So I've got that trimmed up kind of nicely now, as nice as I can. So I'm just cleaning everything up and getting it ready to go in. And that is more or less what it will look like, hopefully very shortly. And that was the next biggest part of this whole repair at the front footwell. So I'll get that welded in, and then we'll move on with the other, like replacing this outside panel and stuff. Yeah, for now it's the final trim. Put some weld through primer on everything underneath for the braces and stuff, and then yeah, tack it out, and then it'll be the full weld out for this whole floor panel, and then it's just big days on the grinder after that. You can see here where the toe board sits. So this is the body mount. This is what I previously had to repair underneath the floor panel to attach this side of the floor panel. So that's a new piece of steel there. Luckily, this section of the body mount was still in good nick, so I've just cleaned it up. That's the vertical brace that runs behind the toe board. That was still in good condition. It was just this side here was all rusted out. So that's two reasons why I had to take that panel out. This panel itself was rusty because everything along this side was rusted out. So that's where you're going to be looking when you go to take these out for anyone else that has to do it. It's going to be a matter of getting rid of the bottom of that sill, which is probably rusty anyway, most of them are, and then either taking this whole kick panel off, which a lot of people do because you can get whole replacements. We don't, so we just cut this section out to do some repairs instead. Alrighty, back in the shed for another crack. It's another brisk morning here. I think I'm probably starting to get a bit soft for all my time living in Australia. It's only 7 degrees, and I think at home where I'm from, it's -4 this morning. So yeah, that's a bit pathetic on my behalf, but got a coffee. My lovely current girlfriend, Lauren, has made me some breakfast burritos, which is just sensational when you've got a cold morning in the shed, you're trying to get things done. So got a delicious, nutritious start, so I best actually do something productive. On the productivity front today, we've got to weld out the entirety of the toe board. Got that tacked in, all the spot welds done, so I've got to weld that around the periphery and all the way around the floorboard. So I've got a few runs in there just to kind of hold things, and more so just because I wanted myself to feel better, so I put some slightly longer welds in there to make it look like I've done more. So I'm starting with that. Once that's fully welded out, then I'll flush it all off. I haven't attached the floor pan to the outer sill yet, because I want to be able to pull the outer sill away to get all the grinding dust out, so I can clean everything completely before that floor pan gets spot welded to the sill and then gets sealed. So that's where we're at. And then I have to bugger around and make all this fit nicely. I've finished up with the welding out now, and I've just been around putting a torch behind all the welds and using a permanent marker to circle any holes, any pinholes that I could see. So I've now made up the edge of this panel to replace the rusty section that I had to cut out. So I've peened it over. Don't know how well you're going to be able to see that, as per usual. But I put a fold in it and trimmed it back to match what's on the new piece here. So I'm going to weld this in, tack it in place, try and get it in the right spot. And then from there I can work out just how far in and out this panel is going to need to sit in order for the full patch panel that's going to go in here to actually sit flat, and for the rest of this panel to also be pulled back to straight. Welded that on now. I made it sound pretty scientific, that I was going to do some really precise measurements of how this was all supposed to line up once this panel was attached. But in reality, I'm just going to bash it with a hammer. So if you ever hear me talking about something really technical, just assume that I'm making all this shit up. I'm just going to smack it with something heavy. So that's a weld through primer on the back of the panel, and the holes drilled for the spot welds to go up the back side of that brace there. That's all finished off. So get sticking that together. Gotten stuck into rebuilding the inner sill. This has been nothing short of a challenge, in all honesty. You can see how many places I've had to cut and weld just this section alone to try and get the original piece to fit to the new replacement. So I've cut it there twice, cut it there 4 times. I had to cut a section out of the center here and hammer the whole original piece flat to make it narrower to actually fit this profile, because this profile and this profile were totally different by a good 5mm, which is a big gap to try and make up, especially when you want to make things smooth. So the other end has been not really much different. I'll pull it out so you can see. Beautiful fitment. So you can see that. I've had to cut that in multiple places as well to try and fix the curve, because the curve of this patch panel was nothing close to what was in the vehicle. And we've got the new old piece stitched in there to fill that gap. So we're getting there. But yeah, hell of a challenge so far. It's all in one piece. I've now got to bridge a gap in between here, because that's not pretty. But that was quite literally the only way that I could make this work. If there's someone out there that's done it better, please let me know. Send me a picture so I can hate myself afterwards.
Don't forget to tell them how much it
Yeah.
He's hated every second of it.
That's true, I've hated.
Many tantrums.
This bit made me want to quit majorly. Really made me want to give up, because just nothing's gone right. So got big holes to fill everywhere, and yeah, it's great. 40 series is really fun. You should buy one and rebuild it. Definitely.
Makes it extra rusty.
Do that, yeah, get an extra rusty one.
Get an extra rusty one, and you just have so much fun.
Oh, it's great. This is my happy face. We've got the finished product of the sill here now. So that's the inner sill built. Yeah, that was a hell of a challenge, as I explained before. Gonna park that for now, and job now is to weld the outer sill onto the floor pan. So I've been around, and there's been a bit of panel bedding involved to get the floor pan to meet the sill nicely. As yeah, kind of all the positions have changed as I've cut things and welded things and that sort of stuff. So made some blocks just to keep everything clamped together nicely, and I'll do a couple of tacks sort of spaced apart as much as I can to try and keep some heat out of the panel, and just do them as the panel cools down. Once that's done, then the inner sill will go into the inside. Obviously I'll seal the gap beforehand with the adhesive sealant that we've used everywhere else. So I'll seal that, and then the inner sill will go in, weld that in, peen that over. This edge will become the top edge of the sill. That's the bit that you see when you open the door. And that'll pretty much be it, hopefully.
Straight.
Pretty straight to me. Straight, like all things should be.
In the beginning.
In the beginning. In the beginning. In the beginning. In the beginning.
Shut up and do it.
Right, we're putting the sill in.
It's technically the end.
Are you,
Not.
you including that in the beginning?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, right. The sill is going in. I've put some snot on the end of it. Not really necessary because I'm bloody tack welding, well, spot welding all around it. It's just because it's not perfectly flat, so it's going to fill a bit of a gap in there. Yeah, good to see the tail end of this job. So we'll go ahead and clip this thing in without trying to scrape everything up and make a huge mess. But that's probably what's going to happen. And no doubt I'll get this in here and realise there's some critical step that I've forgotten, but it's too late now. It's in. Lovely. So now I can pull that around and spot weld it in place where it needs to be, since the floor is now welded to the bloody outer sill. And I've sealed that, and then we showed the sealing, but I didn't show priming over top of the sealant. So put a coat of primer on top of the sealant, let that cure, and then that's the last oh God.
In the beginning.
In the beginning. It's been a long couple of days. That's the last part. So I'm going to peen that over now, lock that in, weld it all up. Right, that's the installed product, ladies, gentlemen, and aliens. Beautiful. Or not, depending on your level of professionalism. If you don't think it's good, keep your opinions to yourself. No one cares. If you think it's great, let me know. Fuck.
So my job for the day is to reline this overhead console, which was covered in carpet and somebody's DIY'd it, hence there's a bazillion holes. And there were speakers in here as well, which was so annoying because it was like underneath the visors. So I filled them in ages ago, to be honest, and just with some steel, and then primed it. And I'm going to use this vinyl-like fabric, which I got from Spotlight in this tan color, and I'm going to reline it. So I'm just going to glue it on with this, and hopefully it turns out nice. And I'm also going to use the same fabric, and I'm going to make some new door cards and cover them in the same fabric as well. So that's how we're currently looking. It's all stuck down here. I'll fold those over once I've glued this part down. I'm just using these clamps. So I've clamped the fabric there, so when I glued it, I can pull it against some tension, try and get it nice and tight. Hopefully it works, we'll see. So this is the finished roof console. It looks pretty good. I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. I finished it off yesterday. If I could have been bothered, I would have put some foam under there just to hide a few of the rivets and things, but it honestly looks so much better. I'll insert a photo of what it looked like before. It was pretty ugly. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. Then today's job is to use this MDF that I bought yesterday, and I'm gonna make some new door cards and cover it in the same fabric. This is what the door card currently looks like. It's all right, but the wood on it is kind of a bit rotten from being constantly wet from the holes in the roof, but let's see what we can do with it. Change of plans, we're going to use the hole saw instead. The drill just lifted up the MDF. So.
Rolling.
Do I go like slightly in? Hang on.
Rolling film. Cut the thing. Cut it, Lauren.
In or
Lauren,
straight
cut
in?
cut it.
Do I go in? These are my finished door cards. I'm pretty happy with how they turned out. Now we just need some doors for them to go onto. So yeah, pretty happy with that.
Flash.
Flash. Fucking flash.
That is the finished product. So that is the driver's footwell, inner and outer sill, new floorboards, new toe boards, kick panel repaired, sills repaired, all done. It's come up really nice. So now let's move on to the passenger side. The challenges continue on this side. I thought the driver's side was worse, but turns out the passenger side is the worst out of the lot. So I've had to cut a lot of stuff away. I've had to cut away the bottom of this pillar in order to get to the front and back side of this body mount. So the floor pan runs up the face of there, but I had to cut a section out here and repair it. And I had to replace this whole section here, which is all new. So everything has to go back together now. I'm about to weld the new floor pan in, which is up here, and as you can see, that curves around to cover the front of that body mount. So that'll tack in nicely there. Fits the floor pan profile on this side, which is nice. It didn't on the other side because of the big bulge, which is currently hidden by the trans tunnel. And then I've had to rebuild this part of the body mount as well. So that was cutting a section out and folding a piece over it, which you might be able to see. You can see where it's been welded underneath there. And that'll get the floor pan taken care of. The next stage will be, lining up that pillar again. It's going to be a bit of a trick because everything dropped. Hence why I've got it jacked up with a piece of wood to try and get it at the right level. I'm going to have to put the door back on, I'd say, to line up where that needs to go so that latch is in the right spot. And then it's on to all of this fun stuff, but that's a problem for another week, I think.
Monty's done a wicked job getting that second passenger side floor pan in. Are you pretty happy with that?
Very stoked with how it's come up. Looks good. Doesn't look like I threw a tantrum and wanted to quit all the time at all.
So now we're gonna just start her up and move her out the workshop so we can clean up all of that mess. Let's see if she starts.
Thanks, Ross.
Oh, look at that. All the smoke. Like new. Don't show that to all the greenies, eh?
This is my first revision of the piece of the pillar that I had to remake. So this is from the inside of the passenger A pillar, and I've tried to recreate this purely out of flat profiles because that's the easiest thing for me to make in a vise with a hammer. Those are the only two tools I've got. So everything that I've built on this restoration, on this project, has been with an angle grinder, sometimes with a guard, sometimes without. Depends if you like living on the edge. I do. So with those tools in hand, it's a lot easier just to make things out of flat sections. So I've tried to do that. It's actually got a curve in the original piece. I've tried to make it out of a flat profile. It looks like it should work, but it doesn't. It does need to have a curve in it. So I'm going to cut it out and try and recreate that curve. It's not too hard. Like, it's only hammering a curve in. It's just bending a piece of steel, really. It's just a lot easier to make things out of flat bits. But I'll show you where it's got to go and why it doesn't work. Okay, so this is essentially where it's got to be. Everything lines up the way that it's supposed to, but this section here is where the curve has to be. So the original piece, which is looking a bit secondhand, but you can see the curve in that. And the curve in that piece has to match the back side of the curve in the outer sill. Now it almost fits, it does go in there, it lines up, but it just doesn't mate up the way that it's supposed to. There's still a gap behind it. I need to cut more out. This is the way with making bits up that no longer exist. I didn't have any real template for this. The other side wasn't completely eroded like this. I did have to add a patch onto the bottom of it, but I didn't have to rebuild any of this structure. So this is something that I'm making up kind of blind, essentially. Yeah, so I'm going to cut that out, try and remake that curve, and we'll see how much better that is after that. I've taken the panel off and cut the original piece out, which is there, to then grind out and match the curve. So that is matched as certainly as good as it needs to be. So I'm now going to cut out a section and try and make it fit the inside of this so that it doesn't protrude any further, so they end up with the same fitment. So I want the new piece of steel to fit on the inside of this piece as opposed to laying it on the outside edge here. So get busy with that and see what I can come up with. There we have the finished product. That came up rather well. I've test fitted it into where it belongs. So that's going to live in there quite nicely. And that fits in perfectly with the curve of the existing panel. Happy with that. Time to weld it in. So I'm welding this thing in, and I found that once I've done the bottom tacks, the spot welds rather, down the bottom, which you can just see underneath that chisel there, it kind of pulled away, so I needed to fix it in place properly. And that was when I got creative with the G-clamp, or the quick grips, and the chisel. So the chisel was pushed into the back there and held nicely by the G-clamp to keep everything flush and square. So yeah, if in doubt, get creative. Now that the inside of the pillar is welded in and everything is covered in epoxy primer, it's time to put the outside of the sill on. I had to repair this piece as well. Everything here is new, so I had to completely make up this piece, fold it up and weld it in, flush it off, And now it is ready to fit in there just nicely like that. It's welded on. It's fully welded. There we have the outer sill. I skipped a few steps with the filming because you guys have already seen me weld in a million other things. It's all the same process, it's just tacks and keeping the heat out. So you do a couple of tacks here, move on, wait till it's cooled down. It's the same process. So I didn't film it. Filming's very time consuming, and when I get on a roll, I like to just keep working. So that's what I did. I've got it finished now, which is great. So that is the outer sill completed, sanded back, flushed off, everything is blended in nicely, and now it's time to move on to the inner sill. So a quick look at what I've done. That's all the original pieces blended back into the new section, there and here. So there was a lot of repairs involved in this. This was extremely time consuming compared to the other side, because I'd cut the back of the sill out, or the back of the pillar, sorry, and had to repair it, and I had to repair this section, and obviously I had to rebuild the inside of the front pillar, and I had to repair this as well. I also, with this rust panel, this patch panel, I actually had to change the profile of this bend. So I had to flatten it all out again and then bend it over to be a little narrower to match up with all the factory lines here. So yeah, there was a lot going on. But anyway, moving on to the inside, and I've got the inner sill clipped in there, not very well lit, but you get the idea. While I've got the primer and the sealant drying on the inner sill, I've started tackling these. So these four pieces here are the braces between where the top of the wall is going to be and the door. Nice little shape like that. And they were pretty buggered. We tried to get some new ones, but they don't make them anymore. Nobody makes them apparently. So yeah, a few repairs going on. This is a new section, obviously with the lip. This is a whole new lip section that went in, and this was a whole end. So from here forward is all new. Now that's all come up quite nicely. These, I had a rusted snap bolt in there, so that was a weld out and remove repair, and I thought all that was good. I was done, because once I finish that I can move on to the back end, which is cutting out the boxes that is going to house our fridge. But remember, there was this piece as well, and surprise surprise, the whole end was rusted out. So that was actually a plate, both ends, but now it's just a big gaping hole. So I'm going to fab up some stuff too. I love saying fab up, makes me sound clever. I'm actually just cutting shit out with an angle grinder and hitting it with a hammer. So this is not going to be a hole anymore, this is going to go back to being a plate. And yeah, this is kind of the reason why I pulled it off, because I could see some surface rust under there, and lo and behold, it becomes a much bigger problem. These were hidden by a bit of foam. Fuck, I should have just left it. Make my life a whole lot easier. But anyway, we're here now, we're going to fix it, and then it'll be mint, and that'll be the tops of the doors and the back of the barn door braces all finished. By the time that's done, I should be able to weld the new sill into the inside. Right, so after all the struggles and dramas, that is the passenger side finished. What a bloody mission this has been. It all went wrong. Some of it went right, and it was just a fight from start to finish, but it's done and it looks good now, and the door closes. Beautiful. Let's just ignore that patch of rust there and focus on the door gap. The door seal's a lot better than it did before. So now we've got some compression on the door seals. Same on the driver's side, so it's ended up better than what it started, and that's the ideal result. Bloody good. Here we've got the finished product. How bloody good. That is 2 fully repaired floor pans. New sills inside and out. New floors. New toe boards. So that's both sides done. Bloody marvellous. That was a huge effort, and by no means was it easy, but got it done. So yeah, thank God for that. on to the next challenge. There's always something. This morning I finished up this section here. That was the last remaining panel repair. That I had to do. Yeah, pretty happy to get that over and done. So this door shuts now as well. Oh, beautiful. This was an absolute total nightmare. I had to recut the pillar. I had to grind out door hinges. I had to adjust door stops, change door latches. I had to ratchet the bloody windscreen to the bull bar to try and pull the pillar straight once I'd cut it. And I double checked and measured everything before I put it on. I was very careful with my welding. I tried not to sink too much heat into one spot, but shit happens, whatever. I just hope the roof goes on and it's all straight. So now that I've finished that, it's time for some boxes. Now that the bulk of the rust repairs are done, and I can't believe I'm actually saying that, I've probably just jinxed it, and I'm going to find some other big horrendous patch of corrosion that's going to ruin my life yet again. But we move on. It's now time to cut out the back sections of what is originally the seat mount. So both these sides are going to get chopped out to give us space for a fridge on one side and space for some storage on the other. It's pretty simple. Again, probably just jinxed myself to shit, but anyway. It's just cutting out these sections and replacing with flats. I'm going to go flat all the way out to the wall. The outside of the box is going to be the outer skin because everything on these is single skin anyway. There's no gaps, there's no double skins. So I don't really give a shit. I'm not going to make any better than it already is. There's no need to make improvements on perfection. It is an old Toyota, obviously. So I'm going to start chopping, and fingers crossed this is going to be a straightforward exercise. It has the potential to go south because there is a brace underneath these that pins the back section of the outside of the guards in. So once I let those go, the guards have every potential to do this, or do one of those. I don't know. Let's just cut the bits and find out. Here we have the final result from all the cutting. A fair bit of cleaning involved to get this nice and shiny, but we're done. Nice solid floor. For the back walls here, it is going to be removable. So I've welded a lip around the outside and the bottom. That means we can do all the body sealing in there without missing any spots. These are going to be pop riveted on with sealant. Same scenario on this side, all nicely molded and folded. Bloody beautiful. So that is our custom storage solution for a 40 series Troopy. Space for a fridge, space for some other stuff. Bloody beautiful. Job well done.
Well guys, that brings us to the end of episode 3 for the Troopy build.
What an absolute monster amount of work this has been. I'm so glad to see the end of it.
There's been so much work go into the last episode, which really the camera does not do it justice. Monty has put so much effort and time into it, which has just been incredible, and we're so glad it's over. We knew it was going to be tough, but we're happy.
Didn't think it was going to be that tough.
Yeah.
There was so much more than I expected, and my brain is mush after having to try and work all that stuff out. So, on to the next section.
So in the next episode, we're going to start putting this car back together and making it look more like a car than whatever it is currently.
So that'll be some brand new walls going on. We'll get the roof on, we'll get all the doors on, and this thing will start looking like the thing we're going to hopefully take to Africa.
Yeah, so see you next time. Thank you for watching.